notes here that he was, and our listeners, that this is a guy who we took last year in the second round when people like DJ Metcalf, who just went off last night for the Seahawks, was still on the draft board. Now, I would still love to have DJ Metcalf as a Green Bay Packer receiver, but it just kind of shows you, kind of to your point, right? It's not always the flashy players that Green Bay and NFL teams are looking for specifically, but I mean, at the time, what an underrated pick, and now looking back at it, Elton Jenkins is kind of the Swiss Army knife of our offensive line, and we can use him however which way we need, and is just kind of been a savior to this offensive line. I mean, we've had injuries kind of across the board now, not long term for anyone yet, um, but he's just kind of been kind of a godsend to this offensive line and keeping Aaron Rodgers upright. I mean, remember who we played last night? Khalil Mack, right? And no knockdowns after Lindsey left the game. I think it's just can't be stressed enough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like the Swiss Army knife reference because he definitely is that. And if he can stay healthy, and fill in for guys on the O line when they go out, I mean, that's a huge weapon to have on your offensive line. He's a great pick, and I think you were saying DJ Metcalf, but I think you meant DK Metcalf, as in Donkey Kong.
Yep, I definitely said
Okay,
DJ.
and I wasn't sure if I misheard you. Not that it matters, but anyway, but yeah. So
Well,
go ahead.
and I was just gonna say, and that of course kept Aaron upright, like I said, but it also contributed to the well balanced game of our rushing attack as well. We had 39 carries for 182 yards. I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I think one of my keys to success last week, or X factors or player to watch, was I hope no one really just jumps out on the stat sheet, and I hope the ball is spread around. And we did exactly that. I mean, Jamal Williams had a heck of a night. Aaron Jones had a heck of a night. Alan Lazard had a touchdown. You already mentioned Devontae Adams' touchdown pass, which ironically was one of the longer balls that Aaron threw. And I think you and I both thought Aaron was throwing the ball out of the back of the end zone when Devontae got his first touchdown,
Hmm.
when he just went up that ladder and grabbed it. Um, but I mean, just kind of all around, you can't really circle on one person offensively in the skill players who had an amazing night, but you can circle Alton Jenkins, and you can, obviously it's not a one man team, but he was a large part of why every single one of those names, every single one of those people that kind of you care about for fantasy reasons, he was a major, major, major reason for why each of those guys could have as good of a night as they did.
Yeah, for sure. And then I don't know if you had any surprises from the game. Was there anything from the game that you thought was unusual or any surprises, pleasantly or otherwise?
Not particularly. I mean, I was surprised it was not as close as we both anticipated. I think that's just natural instinct that Aaron said it in the post game interview right after, that Chicago is the Green Bay Packers biggest rival. Sorry, Minnesota Vikings fans who may be listening to this. But I was surprised it wasn't as close of a game. I was surprised the weather didn't affect, because it was again windy in Lambeau. It didn't affect Aaron as much as it had in the Vikings game and the Jacksonville game. But I was surprised by that. But then again, I'm not as surprised. As soon as we saw that Hakeem Hicks was out for this game, that allowed us to establish the run as well, right? It wasn't all Alton Jenkins, despite my last monologue there. I think it is a slightly different game if Hakeem Hicks plays.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I was a little bit surprised that the Packers were able to put up 41 on this Bears defense, but obviously the loss of Hicks is a huge, huge factor in that. Obviously, yeah, I'm hoping that Aaron is maybe acclimating a little bit better to the wind or the weather, and he'll start getting into a groove here come the playoff time. But what about any news? I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday, and I believe we've had some roster news today.
Yeah, I was driving past your house actually earlier. I didn't tell you this,
Creep.
and you must have been like leaving like, your windows open or something. 'Cause I just heard a young child crying. If it sounded like it, maybe it was you. I don't know. Was it because your favorite Green Bay Packer was cut this morning?
Are you talking about Darius Shepard?
I'm talking about Darius Shepard.
Okay, I didn't know where you're going with that. I actually did not know he was cut, but I think I called it a couple weeks ago. I'm like, look, after that Colts game, he's kind of going the way of Ty Montgomery after some of those decisions and that fumble. That's a bummer. I thought he had a lot of potential. He just couldn't figure it out, unfortunately. And no, I actually didn't know that. I was like, where's he going with this weird story? But
Well, well, now I can hear you getting choked up right now.
yeah,
So
I gotta.
once we stop recording, you can really let it
Yeah,
out.
I will.
But it was for good reason. We straight up made an upgrade. We picked up Tavon Austin, who I guess you can. I kind of remember him most as a Cowboy, but he was drafted by the St. Louis Rams several years ago. He's a 30-year-old receiver, and he's a lot like Swervin Irvin, Tyler Irvin, where he's kind of that gadget type player. In his prime of his career, he was a 300, 400 yard type guy, but he really is a great punt returner as well. So it is sad to see Darius Shepard go, but on paper, you let him go and you pick up. Um, Tavon Austin, we made an upgrade and he will be used right now that we have these receivers kind of coming back. Another gadget player in Austin who won't be able to play this week against the Eagles. By the way, he'll have to come back the following week. And another person at punt returner. I mean, Irvin has been hurt several games and hasn't been able to play, and we've seen how great he's done on some of these returns. Then you see what happens when we put Darius Shepard in when Irvin can't play. So just having another return guy back there and another gadget player for LaFleur to play with those pre-snap motions or those jet sweep type plays, that slot type position. I think if we can make a run, he will have an impact for sure on the special teams, but hopefully offensively as well.
Okay, very good. And I think we heard today too that somebody that the Packers fans were hoping we'd sign, Will Fuller, has been suspended for 6 weeks.
I made fun of you for liking Darius Shepard. Now you can make fun of me for basically savaging the Packers for not signing Will Fuller. Yeah, he's been suspended for I think performance enhancing drugs,
Right.
honestly, for 6 weeks. So I'm assuming the Packers didn't know about that when they passed on him because it wouldn't have been a conversation, obviously, if we knew about that, and wouldn't have had so much news on November 3rd, trade deadline day. But wow, we avoided a big one there. I mean, how bad would that have looked? And I'm eating my words that the Packers made the right call by passing on Will Fuller because he can't play this year.
Yeah, I mean, probably a coincidence. I doubt they had any inside intel into his substance abuse issues, but regardless, they made the right call, and that kind of brings me back to like, everybody's clamoring for new weapons for Aaron Rodgers, and why didn't you draft this guy? Why didn't you sign this guy? And it's kind of like you just trust the process and trust that these player personnel people just they understand it a lot better than we ever will, and are hopefully making the right decisions for the organization. But um, anything else on that note?
well, yeah, before we go, I was just going to kind of mention I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. They watched, I'm sure, the Lions um, get get pretty well destroyed for kind of our update around the NFC North. The Lions did lose to the Texans last year, by a pretty wide margin. But then the Vikings, they had a kind of weird kind of comeback game after giving up back-to-back scoop and score touchdowns to Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers, and then they kind of came back after the Panthers had some really interesting play calls to stop the clock for them a bunch. But all of a sudden, the Vikings find themselves in the hunt for a wild card position, and with that extended playoff spot that they included this year, it's not that far fetched. The Vikings can go on a little bit of a run here and potentially be the hot team going into the playoffs. Obviously, we knew what happened with the Bears. We kind of continued their downfall, and although they're technically still in the hunt as well, I think this is just after starting, I think 5-1, losing the last 4 or 5 straight is just kind of if not the nail in the coffin. I think they're pretty much done. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't know that there's going to be an opportunity for the Bears to come back and make the playoffs this season, but to your earlier point, I don't want to see the Vikings win anymore. I don't want them to have a push for the playoffs just because, we know how that can go when a division rival it gets hot at the end of the season. So hoping that they lose, at least three of the next five and aren't going to have a chance. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah, they have the Jags next, the 1-10 or 1-11 Jags. But then they got to go down to Tampa Bay and play Tom Brady, who you never know who you're going to get, right? I mean, honestly, I could see that upset if you get the right Tom Brady, that game. They do have to get past the Saints. So if the Vikings do take out the Saints for us, not put one more loss in their loss column because all of a sudden they're very very hot. That would be that'd be something, a nice little treat for us. But I guess the only other thought I have before we go is unfortunately the Seahawks did win last night, so they do maintain that number 2 seed over Green Bay for some tie breaking rules that we shouldn't get into because I'm not even sure if we'd really know. But hopefully we can get one game ahead of Seattle as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the Packers have a good shot to win out the rest of the season.
Oh man, I would absolutely love to go undefeated the rest of the way. Just as a reminder for any of those Packer fans listening to this very specific podcast who aren't paying attention, if we win out, that means we would be 13-3, which would match what we did last year. And of course, we made it to the NFC Championship game last year, so that would be a a very successful season if we were able to make there again. Obviously, our aspirations are much higher than that with Aaron Rodgers on his last few years here in Green Bay. The next 3 games, the Packers are hosting the Eagles, we're going to Detroit, and then we're hosting the Panthers. Those are 3 games that we're going to be heavily, heavily favored in. And, honestly, we should win handedly. If we, for some reason, drop any one of these 3 games, then, kind of all bets are off on what happens in the postseason, and you can basically kiss the number 1 seed and that first round bye goodbye. So these next 3 games, we got to take care of business because on December 27th, when 2 days after Christmas, every Packer fan should circle this on their calendar. Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans will be coming up to Green Bay, and that's going to be the showdown for potentially, if we do take care of business these next 3 games, that could potentially be the game that's going to make or break our number 1 seed dreams. So we got a little bit of work to do. We got to catch up to the Saints. We need them to fall down 1, and we need Seattle to drop 1 as well. And then we need to take care of business on January 3rd against the Bears. But undefeated is definitely something that I would love to do. But Marcus, unless you have anything else, I just want to thank everyone for listening and to remind them not to forget to rate us on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast service. And Marcus, as always, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
The Bears still suck. The Bears still suck. They really, 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 really suck. Yes, the Bears still suck.